Imagine stepping through the heavy wooden doors of a medieval castle in the year 1218. You might think of kings, knights, and lavish feasts, but here's the twist. Most people inside these walls were not nobles. They were servants, soldiers, and craftsmen struggling to survive in a world without electricity, central heating, or modern plumbing. The air smells of smoke and damp stone. The corridors echo with the shuffling of boots and the distant clanging of metal. Yet life went on, day after day, in ways most of us could hardly endure. How did people cook their meals, keep warm through bitter winters, and avoid disease in tight, shadowed quarters? The mystery isn't in the grandeur of the towers or the drawbridges. It's in the ingenuity, the rituals, the tiny, almost invisible tricks that allowed life to persist. People devised solutions born of necessity, balancing danger, hunger, and the freezing cold, often learning by failure, watching neighbours suffer or die, and quietly improving their routines. Understanding this hidden life inside a castle reveals not only the harshness of medieval existence, but also the overlooked brilliance of survival strategies that, in many ways, are still relevant today. The year 1218 falls squarely within a time of turbulence in England and much of Europe. Castles were not just symbols of power. They were practical fortresses, designed to defend against sieges, raids, and the unpredictable whims of politics. Inside their stone walls, a small population of soldiers, servants, and artisans coexisted with the lord and his family. Life inside was organized, but far from comfortable. Stone walls absorbed cold in winter, kitchens were smoky, and water had to be drawn from wells or cisterns, often miles away from sleeping quarters. Food storage was primitive, relying on root cellars, salted meats, and fermented grains. Hygiene was minimal. Shared latrines reeked, and disease could sweep through quickly. Yet, despite these dangers, routines emerged. Morning chores were timed with the rise of the sun. Bell towers and watch shifts structured the day. People learned to exploit the architecture around them. Thick walls for insulation, hearths for warmth, and narrow stairwells to minimize heat loss. Their survival depended on understanding the rhythms of the castle as much as the rhythms of nature, combining observation, trial, and quiet innovation in a world where mistakes could be fatal. Here's the clever part most historians overlook. Survival inside a castle wasn't just about enduring, it was about manipulating the environment. Kitchens and bakeries were positioned on the lower levels, so residual heat rose naturally into sleeping quarters. Stone floors were covered with straw, animal hides, and rushes to trap warmth and reduce contact with freezing surfaces. Sleeping arrangements were communal. Body heat became a resource, shared carefully among residents in shifts during long, dark nights. Smoke from fireplaces wasn't simply a byproduct, it was funneled strategically to warm certain chambers and discourage pests. Even the seemingly arbitrary placement of staircases and corridors mattered. Narrow passageways slowed airflow, reducing heat loss in winter. Food preservation techniques, pickling, smoking, salting, were applied not only for taste, but for survival, ensuring protein lasted through months when hunting was impossible. Water systems were rudimentary yet effective. Cisterns captured rainwater, wells were lined with stone to prevent freezing, and rules governed who drew water and when, conserving both warmth and safety. Every detail, from the height of ceilings to the type of wool used in blankets, was optimized through observation, trial, and generations of learned practice, creating a survival ecosystem inside walls that outsiders could scarcely imagine. These medieval solutions weren't primitive. They were resourceful, and in some ways more sustainable than our modern reliance on energy-intensive technology. Imagine applying the same principles today, using passive heat management, layering insulation strategically, sharing resources efficiently, and designing spaces to conserve energy. Modern architecture can borrow from these lessons. Heat rises, insulation works better when layered, and airflow can be controlled naturally rather than mechanically. Even in emergency preparedness, the medieval model offers insight. Communal sleeping, insulated bedding, and careful heat allocation can keep people alive without electricity. Water conservation strategies, rainwater capture, gravity-fed systems, and thermal protection mirror techniques long used in castles. What we often consider modern innovations were in fact rediscoveries of methods quietly perfected centuries ago. Understanding how medieval inhabitants survived not only connects us to history but also challenges our assumptions about necessity and comfort, showing that clever design, observation, and shared human knowledge can compensate for what we now take for granted. Electricity, central heating, and instant access to resources. Walking through a castle in 1218 wasn't a fairy tale adventure. It was a lesson in resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation. Every stone, every hearth, every straw mattress tells a story of survival in a world both harsh and meticulously organized. Life inside those walls reminds us that humans endure not because of comfort, but because of observation, shared wisdom, and a relentless willingness to adapt. Today, we live insulated from many of the challenges our ancestors faced, yet the principles remain relevant. Efficient use of resources, strategic environmental design, and mutual cooperation. Reflecting on these lessons, we realize that survival isn't just about tools or technology. It's about understanding the world around us, respecting its limits, and innovating within them. The medieval castle may seem distant, its fires long extinguished, yet its secrets whisper across centuries, urging us to rethink how we live, conserve, and endure. If this glimpse into medieval ingenuity has inspired you, explore more, question assumptions, and see how the past can illuminate solutions for the present and future.